Hey there YouTube, Classic Reviewer here with another one of my review videos. Today I'll be discussing a movie that I have already put up on my channel in one of my collection videos, namely the top 10 all-time favorite action movies. Um, this is a more recent action movie releasing in October of 2016 in Australia, at least a couple of days earlier in the US, I believe. It was directed by Mel Gibson, really well known, well famous actor, director. It features Andrew Garfield and Teresa Palmer as the main actress. The movie is, of course, Hacksaw Ridge, one of my all-time favorite movies, as well as all-time favorite action movies. I know I put this up on the channel before, but I figured it was time for me to do an official review on it. Really, really well-made movie, especially considering how much of it stays true to the original story, the original World War II story. So, for those of you who don't know, it's based off a World War II soldier, Private Desmond Doss, who after the Japanese hit Pearl Harbor, signed up to fight in World War II for the Americans, and however, being a religious man, he felt that his calling in the war was to help people, to heal people as a medic, and apply for training as a medic, but never pick up a gun, because he doesn't believe in violence. He's a conscientious objector, or a CO. Something that wasn't very common in either World War One or World War Two. Yeah, probably was in World War One. I'm just not too sure. There were other conscientious objectors in World War Two. However, there weren't that many of them. And this is something throughout the movie that he gets quite a bit of trash talk and bullying initially. So but it's really an amazing story of how his faith in his religion and his beliefs allowed him to overcome like any obstacles. So movie starts off with him as an old man, like looking over the gravestones of his fellow soldiers. And then basically it kind of flashes back to when he was younger, like, when he was a youngster before the war started. His father fought in World War One, or as it was known then, the Great War, the war to end all wars. And because of the horrific things his father saw and dealt with during the First World War, it made him made him very susceptible to like PTSD and anger fits and being an alcoholic, all of which he kind of took out on his sons, like if they failed him, or it was very bad punishments. Was because let's just say like veterans back then really didn't receive any help or any credit. With that, it was just like, oh well, you're back from war now. Get back to living everyday life. But anyways, so then so he falls in love with a young nurse who is played by Teresa Palmer. Yeah, a young nurse played by Teresa Palmer called Dorothy Scott. She works at the local hospital there, and yeah, they kind of fall in love. They do, and yeah, uh, like they move in together, and then shortly after that, the Japanese bomb Pearl Harbor, and he gets riled up to join the Army Corps. He does as a field medic, um, because he doesn't believe that he should feel safe back home whilst he has the ability to serve. So he joins up and he gets moved out to a military training facility. Um, and he starts to get his training. Like, all starts well to begin with. Like, his roommates don't, all try to get to know him, all, try talking to him and that, and then it isn't until, like, the first training exercise where, they have to choose out their own gun, basically, their own assault rifle, and the sergeant notices that there's one missing. Looking over, he sees Private Desmond Doss is the only one without a gun. And so, that's where all that starts. And then, basically, after some refusal, like, the sergeant basically puts in a complaint to, his commanding officer, who essentially doesn't understand as to why, Desmond won't pick up a gun, won't use a gun, because, it's the military, it's a war, there's quite a bit of fighting going on, and all that. And this is basically the start of his problems, because, it's not just the fact that he won't use a gun, he refuses a number of direct orders in relation to the guns and other matters. This ends up basically like him having to get a trial going on, him having to be put in like a jail kind of situation whilst he's awaiting his trial, and whilst he's refusing all the different orders, his bunkmates are essentially, told to make his life hell. Basically, like, make his life as much hell as possible in the hopes that he gives in and goes, right, okay, fine, I'll just man up and I'll get a gun, kind of thing. But it does eventually go too far with his roommates physically attacking him, and his sergeant kind of has to have a moral look at things, that that this is a man and this isn't, and his roommates are just basically being animals to him right now. So basically, the day of the court case comes, and there's some backwards and forwards, but in the end, he is allowed to serve as a medical officer. As the United States do have laws for protecting any conscientious objectors, people who won't carry guns or won't carry weapons of any sort into combat. So basically, they weren't allowed to kick him out or court-martial him on the basis that he'd been refusing to carry guns, basically. And you do learn quite a bit of background in this time. Like, he did used to use guns, like when he was a teenager. However, it got to his dad's drunken drunkenness eventually made him see, because basically like his dad went off at him and his mother and started beating his mother, and uh Desmond, just eventually like pulls a gun on him. He does like, out of defense of his mother, but it was at that moment when Desmond realized, what he was doing, and regardless of the fact that his dad was, you know, doing all this stuff, like it's, you know, why is he pulling a gun on his own father kind of thing, and it sickens him to the point of swearing not to touch gun ever again, basically. So, at the court martial as well, Desmond's father kind of brings in the letter from the government, which says that, um, basically says that Desmond is allowed to continue his training and not carry a weapon, and his refusal to carry weapons and that were, you know, it fell under like class of special like privileges that he could, like basically go and serve without any kind of weapon, gun or knife or whatever. So basically, they ship out to the in the movie they ship out to the island of Okinawa off the mainland of Japan. They do, and in real life they have the Desmond and his company. They have a few different fights before going to that one, so they were in real life they were quite hardened at that point. So they'd been through combat, through military engagements at that point. Whereas in the movie, of course, it just jump cuts to them going straight to Okinawa. So in the movie, they don't have the same experience as they did in real life. But realistically, that's just me pointing out facts. It's not me saying it's bad or anything. It's a movie after all. They only have a limited amount of time. So basically they're going to replace another company of American troops, which essentially just got slaughtered. They did at this well, the engagement is of course called Hacksaw Ridge. It's a giant cliff battlefield. It is. So each morning the American troops have to climb up a rope ladder up the cliff, and before they're able to take their positions. First the Navy like softens up the cliff with artillery strikes in order to send any like Japanese forces up scurrying for cover kind of thing, and to essentially help the Americans scale the giant cliff face. Oh dear. Sorry about that. Sore throat. So yeah, the Americans scale up, and they have a number of conflicts at the top of Hacksaw Ridge. They do, on the first day, they initially push back the Japanese defenses. However, the next day, they're forced to retreat all the way back down the cliff as the Japanese forces just charge and annihilate them, causing heavy casualties among the American troops. Desmond Doss is this point kind of cut off from the main American force. He is, and he's essentially forced into taking cover on top of Hacksaw Ridge, dodging Japanese snipers and Japanese ground patrols, hiding out till dark. And then once dark comes in, he starts going out to search for injured American soldiers who are still stuck there. And during that one night and into the next morning, Desmond managed to save up to 75 American soldiers who had been wounded during the Japanese pushback. Sorry. Even having to hide one of his bunkmates, one of the guys who had been especially vicious towards him back at training camp. Basically, like, having to hide him under a layer of dirt so that he wouldn't be found by Japanese troops. And this is what really made the American troops respect Desmond, was because of the fact that he selflessly stayed back to help their own troops out, basically. Pulling those back that couldn't, bring themselves down. So what he essentially did was, because they had a rope pulley system to lower down injured, troopers that had been paralyzed or lost limbs and what have you and couldn't move, could be lowered down on a stretcher bed. They could, alternatively, if the injury wasn't so severe, then the trooper could be tied to a rope which was attached to a rock quite securely at the top. They could essentially, Desmond could lower them down manually that way. Yeah, so then the next day, the day after that, they have to go back up fighting. However, they refuse to do so without DOS, and because it's a Saturday and DOS is a 7-day Adventist, he's unable to go to work because Saturday is his Sabbath. So whilst he does go back up there, help, it's, he spends a bit of time praying for the troops and what have you and their safety. And they go back up there the next day, and after a bit of fighting, the Japanese forces surrender. They do, though a couple of them, after a fake surrender, they pull grenades out on the American forces. Desmond kicks 2 of the grenades away, though one of them detonates really close to him as he's kicking it away. It explodes in the air, severely injuring him. And so his buddies send him back, but because he's lost his Bible, which is very dear and very important to him, one of the troopers offers to go back for it because they kind of in a way they revere Desmond as a sort of hero or legend. They do, and yeah, so he goes back, finds the Bible, and gives it back to him just as he's being lowered down on a stretcher because like it it the grenade blew quite a number of holes into him, like his arms, his legs, and his torso. So it was very hard for him to move around or do anything. So get this really beautiful scene of him sailing down the cliff on the stretcher. And then, of course, it cuts back to him as an old man in the graveyard, looking over his fallen buddies and the tombstone of his sergeant, and just weeping because you know they were such brave. They were all such brave men, like regardless of what they had done to him in the past, and just yeah. So that's my review of Hacksaw Ridge. Really amazingly well made, well directed movie. Yeah, just one of my all time favorites of the last few years. Honestly, I'd rate this movie to be about 9 out of 10. Besides a few little nitpicks that I really have no issues with the story or how it's presented or how it looks or anything like that. Like, it's just really well written, really amazing, and just really emotional, to be honest with you. Like, when he's going through the training and he is getting bullied, like, it's really like hardcore, and it's really nothing gets held back really. So but well, you feel like all the pain he's feeling, and you feel so angry that all this is being taken out on him, and it's just a really great action movie. So that's it for today's video. If you liked it, feel free to drop a thumbs up, leave a like, comment any thoughts you had during this review, or if you've seen the movie, how you felt about it, how much you like it, don't like it. And if you especially like this video or any of my other content, feel free to subscribe to the channel. It means a lot that you decide that I'm worthy of your time in entertainment. Yeah, and it just means so much to this community. It does. So yeah, that's it for today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you guys are having a fantastic week at the moment. And yeah, just see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.